Minister, and hopefully very brief answers.
Sure.
Just firstly, you've said that there's a better system now, the HPV testing, which has been assessed and will be implemented. When was it decided to assess that and move to the new system, and what was the basis of that reassessment?
It was a very brief question, so I was just getting my notes in relation to it. But I decided to introduce it in February of this year, and it was following on from a HICWA HTA. So the HICWA HTA recommended to me that it could reduce the number of false negatives for Irish women.
We know it's a matter of public record that the Taoiseach has said he changed his position on mandatory open disclosure on the basis of the advice of his officials. You also have received similar advice, as indeed I have. That advice was against best international practice. It was against evidence. When we asked the Department and the Chief Medical Officer when we met him what was the evidence against mandatory open disclosure and the implication that that would lead to less disclosures, there was no evidence, and they admitted to same. Given that you and your predecessor have been sent out to act on bad advice, what are you going to do to call to account the Chief Medical Officer and the CEO of the HSE?
I don't think how you represent the Chief Medical Officer's advice is how I would recall it, but that's a matter we can pursue that some other time perhaps. We in the Department of Health, and more importantly the Government and in the programme for Government, are fully committed to the introduction of mandatory open disclosure. I've already acknowledged that you've done Trojan work in relation to this, and we will move ahead with the Patient Safety Bill. I will bring it to Government for permission to draft next Tuesday. With the assistance of people in this House, I will work with you all to get it passed as a matter of urgency. I think it's one of the most practical things we can do for the people who are wondering why wasn't I told by my doctor.
Yet you were sent out with that advice, and it could have been brought in before now. But in any case, just in terms of litigation, you're aware that outstanding liability claims against the state for 2016 amount to €2.2 billion. 87% of those liabilities rest with the HSE and TUSLA, an amount of about €1.9 billion in terms of claims. Now, it is patently obvious that litigation and the manner in which the State Claims Agency are operating is a huge factor in what has happened here and what has happened in other cases. So what I'm wondering is, given the comments that were made earlier about the request to ask the Attorney-General to settle cases without further litigation, how can you stand over that in this instance, and yet another arm of the state is actively taking cases or defending cases in relation to, for example, the prescribing of Lariam, whereby not only are they defending the cases and adopting the exact same tactic, but are also continuing to prescribe that drug? And what plans have the Government got to deal with this whole area of litigation and how it informs itself on other legislative provision, and indeed the impact that that has had on open disclosure?
This is an important area that my colleague Minister Flanagan and I are working together on. We obviously have already taken a number of steps, including Minister Flanagan and his department with the Legal Services Regulation Act 2015, which provides for the use of pre-action protocols in clinical negligence actions, the Mediation Act 2017, which promotes mediation as an efficient alternative to court proceedings, and the much debated Civil Liability Amendment Act 2017, which gives the court the option to make periodic payment orders for catastrophically injured plaintiffs. I note the State Claims Agency tells me that it settles 98% of clinical negligence actions out of court. But I think the Deputy raises an important issue. The State Claims Agency plays a very important role in this state, and it does play an important role on behalf of all of the agencies of the state, all of the departments of the state. There is a sense, and I think the action that Taoiseach has taken is prudent in this regard, to ask the Attorney-General to do a body of work with the State Claims Agency in terms of, is there a better way in relation to this case to make sure women can get access to the information and the support they need without needing to go to court. I hope also that the independent clinical review I'm putting in place will help women get factual information without need for a court.
None of those acts and actions that you've taken have addressed the fundamental structural issues, I suppose, behind that. And in the context, while I note some of the concerns of other deputies of the HICWA inquiry, I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but I absolutely think if we are going to get to the bottom of this, that we need something along the lines of the Cartwright inquiry in New Zealand. And I'm asking you, if you don't know about it now, to have a look into that, because what it came off the back of a cervical cancer scandal, where they took the whole system and change the whole way they did business in relation to particularly issues of women's reproductive health and individual input into the process. I think there's huge lessons. I would like you to give a commitment that you will examine that, and that you'll examine, it's a yes-no answer whether you will in some ways, examine the Dutch model, where we know an Irish woman was misdiagnosed in relation to cervical cancer in the Netherlands, but the approach that that state took was radically different to here, and litigation hardly exists in the Netherlands.
I appreciate the constructive and reasonable approach you've taken in relation to the HICWA inquiry, because we all want to get to the answers quickly, but we also want to make sure that we have a mechanism that can get to all of the answers and the full ambit of the answers. And I think we've had a useful beginning of the teasing out of this tonight, and I hope after the Oireachtas Health Committee tomorrow, where you have an opportunity to question officials and to fill in other important pieces in terms of information, that we could then have engagement with the opposition. I'd be happy to do that. I will indeed look